So yes, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. It's a pleasure to be back at Doc NYC. It's been a very sad and devastating time for all of us at Vulcan. Paul Allen, his generosity and his pursuit and commitment to making the world a better place is really evident around the globe. And storytelling was something that he was very passionate about. Not only did he have one of the most impressive media libraries in the world, he was a true film enthusiast. And in 1995, he actually made the single largest investment in DreamWorks, which I don't think a lot of people knew and realized. And actually in 1998, Paul really loved Seattle and the Pacific Northwest and has had really valuable contributions to our community. He rescued the historic Cinerama Theater from demolition and
in Seattle,
and then refurbished it to become one of the most beautiful, exquisite, state-of-the-art theaters in the world. So we actually have a 70-millimeter film festival in town and lots of incredible screenings there. So, but storytelling is something that was very important to him, and we're committed to carrying on his work and the portfolio of projects that he entrusted us to.
So, can you give us the scope of what Vulcan has been doing with documentaries over the years?
Yeah, so actually Vulcan began as Clear Blue Sky Productions in 1997. So we were financing feature films like The Safety of Objects and Hard Candy and Titus. And then in 2003, we became Vulcan Productions. And at the time, we were doing a combination of series like Martin Scorsese's Presents the Blues, beautiful music series. We did RX for Survival and This Emotional Life and films like Far From Heaven. And then in 2014, we had a leadership change, and our mandate really was to become the leader in impact storytelling. So I've been there almost 5 years, and over the course of those 5 years, we've produced series such as We the Economy, Racing Extinction, Feature Doc, Step, Ghost Fleet, Body Team 12, The Ivory Game, on and on.
So I think we have a sizzle reel of Vulcan, just to give you a little sample of what we're talking about. So if in the booth we can run that reel. Conflict zones and in the booth, if you don't know, we're hearing a buzz in here, so anything you can do to fix that, I'd be grateful. Can you talk to us about, what are the key areas of storytelling for you?
Yes, so as you can see, some of the primary areas of focus in the films that we've made are, wildlife conservation and anti-poaching, and ocean health and illegal fishing, access to the arts and education. But some of the other types of films that we have produced, include areas that Paul just had a deep passion for. So a film like Ballet Now, which we produced this year in partnership with Hulu, is really about the classical arts and how to make this classical art, meaningful and relevant and engage younger audiences. We have a World War II museum, so we've done actually quite a bit of historical films. We did Going to War with Sebastian Junger. We have The Cold Blue, directed by Eric Nelson, which is in theaters, or on the festival circuit. It's actually just played at the New York Film Festival and was acquired by HBO. And there's expeditions. We've filmed and actually done live streams of some of the expeditions of discovering the USS Indianapolis last year. So while the filter in some ways feels very narrow, it's actually quite broad and all-encompassing, as Paul's interests were vast.
So we've talked about some of the issues you're interested in. Can you talk about the types of storytelling that you're interested in and how storytelling is a vehicle for these issues?
Yes, so so storytelling is one of 4 ways that Vulcan drives impact. We have storytelling, we have data, we have policy, and we have technology. And that's one of the things that's really unique about our organization. People often ask, like, well, how are you different? Yeah, you're doing social impact films. But within Vulcan, Vulcan Productions is one of, a broad variety of divisions. And when we make a film or we make a series, we have the opportunity to leverage the expertise within the organization. So, for example, with a film like Racing Extinction, that was a very complex film. It was about climate change. It was about mass species extinction. It was about ocean health. So trying to develop a campaign, we decided to focus on species. And we actually worked with our government affairs team to launch Initiative 1401, get that initiative passed to prevent the sale and trafficking of endangered species. The film was acquired by Discovery, and they did a global broadcast, and so it was actually seen by 35 million people around the globe. With a film like Body Team 12, when Ebola hit West Africa in 2014, Vulcan was ahead of responding. I mean, we were ahead of governments. Paul committed $100 million to helping fight and eradicate Ebola. And from the storytelling side, we were one of many of the factors within our team. We had a war room set up, and we met every morning at 9, and it was just an extraordinary time. We had our government affairs team there working with policy. We had our philanthropy team, trying to fund the gaps on the ground with getting PPE kits there and medevac and supplies. We had our technology team where we mobilized 10,000 phones like over a weekend to get on the ground so that they could share data and information in real time. So from a storytelling standpoint, we created Body Team 12, which is a very powerful 13-minute film that immerses you in the crisis like no other, and really helps shine a light.
And has terrific human characters at the center of it.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, Garmai, I mean, she's luminous. She kind of leaps off the screen. I could go on and on. There's many, with Ghost Fleet, I mean, I'll talk about Ghost Fleet, our most recent film, which has screened at a number of festivals and just played here at Doc NYC. With this film, the film is about the human toll of illegal fishing and slavery in Thailand. And, if we were just to make a film about illegal fishing, I think that would be a tough story to tell. But when you have the human angle and you learn about illegal fishing.
At the center of the film is this incredible Thai activist who is going out to sea to try to rescue these modern-day slaves.
Yeah, she's remarkable. We brought her to Toronto, and people really, really responded to her bravery and heroism. So from a campaign standpoint, we're having a multi-pronged approach. We're going to launch the film next year, and we're working on the policy side with governments. We're working to change consumer behavior and clean up supply chains with corporations. But on the technology side, our technology team has developed Skylight, which is a satellite technology which we've already launched, working with governments to track and take down illegal fishing operations. So you can see that there's a lot of unique ways that Vulcan works to really drive impact.
So today is a day of pitching at Doc NYC. For people who are pitching Vulcan, what are you looking for? What's the process?
So I think you have a good idea of the kind of areas that we focus on. So really knowing and understanding, kind of doing your homework, and I think that's across the board with anyone that you're pitching. Know the kinds of projects that they fund. Be familiar with their successes. For us, it's surprising. People will send us projects that have nothing to do with anything related to the work that Vulcan's doing. So it's really important to, tether whatever the pitch is or align with the kinds of things that we're interested in. As I've talked about, impact is really important. And not every film has a campaign, so what is the takeaway? What do you hope to leave your audiences with? Why this film? Why now? Why are you so compelled to tell this story? And even if it's just an inspirational story, that's great. But just really having a clear idea of why you want to get this film made.
And can you talk about formats? We've name-checked several feature-length documentaries that you've done, but also the short and Body Team 12. There's a lot of interest around series today. I don't know how much, if any, if you're working in that. Can you talk about that flexibility of formats?
Yeah, you know, it's really important to evolve with the different mediums and different platforms, and there's a lot of different ways to get stories out there, from VR to AR to installations. You know, we're creating content in all these areas, to short form, to short series. You know, there's a myriad of ways in which you can be effective and get your story out there. And sometimes, you know, people will pitch us a film, and we'll end up, you know, developing it into maybe a 3-part series, or maybe someone will pitch a 5-part series, and we'll say, you know, that's really more of a feature documentary. But going back to the pitching, I think the most important thing is really be specific with your ask. You know, a lot of times people will go on, and they'll bring us a project, and they'll tell us how wonderful it is, but be articulate and be specific about what your story is, what your access is, what your timeline is, who are the characters, and what
How
you're
much money you
asking.
need to finish it?
Yeah. Are you looking for money? Are you looking for a campaign advice? Are you
They're all looking for money. We can just cut to the chase there.
right. How much money?
How much money, and what are you going to do with it, and when are we going to see results? Those are some basics, right?
Exactly.
So you've been in the film space for a long time in different roles. You were theatrical marketing at Fox Searchlight and New Line Cinema. You did short digital distribution before maybe the technology for short digital distribution was as robust as it is today with Atom Films. You know, can you take a minute to reflect on the time we're in right now for documentary film, and where you think the near future is going? What filmmakers should be thinking about?
I think we're in a golden age. I mean, I think people say that every year, but I really believe that more than ever with the expansion, I mean, there is just a huge demand for content. And how do you cut through the noise? How do you break through with your story? And really having compelling characters, having a unique point of view are the two standouts. I think, you know, thinking about cross-pollination of IP, you know, how a podcast can become a series, how an article can be adapted, how a short film can become a narrative. So really, you know, trying to cross-pollinate formats.
Well, I mean, there's a little of that in the example of Ghost Fleet. The filmmaker Shannon Service started out covering this topic for NPR as a reporter, was writing about it 4 or more years ago, writing and broadcasting about it, and took her access and deep knowledge of that topic and turned it into her first film.
Exactly. I mean, it's really remarkable. She was investigating this story. You know, boys and men, she'd learned, were just disappearing in these villages in Thailand, and nobody knew why. And so as she was researching and, you know, trying to understand what was happening and digging deeper, you know, she learned that this was a huge issue and it was pervasive. And over the course of her investigation, she was one of the people that broke the story on NPR. She met Fatima, the main protagonist in our film. And this individual is truly remarkable, and she's rescued nearly 5,000 men, because as the men are entrapped and enslaved, they're out to sea for years and years, which, you know, when I first saw the footage, I couldn't wrap my head around how these men are out to sea for 10, 12, 14 years. That doesn't seem possible. But when they do manage to escape, they're 4,000 miles from home. And so Fatima, the main character in our film, has found a way to deal with the bureaucracy and raise funding to go out to these remote islands in Indonesia and find these men who have been, you know, gone for years, and their families think they're dead, and given up hope, and reunite them. And the story is something that, you know, there's a lot of interest in potentially adapting it for the screen, for a narrative. So again, you know, journalism, cross over to a doc, cross over to a scripted.
So, it's only been a few weeks since the passing of Paul Allen. I wonder, inside Vulcan, what that transition means for the organization.
So, right now, Paul's sister, Jody Allen, she actually founded Vulcan with him 20 years ago, and she was our CEO for 15 years. So she stepped back in and, is in the process of reviewing and, determining what his wishes were. There are no immediate changes, but there will certainly be changes next year in the organization, and none of us know what those are. So until now, storytelling and film were a huge part of the work that Paul cared about in amplifying, the issues that we're tackling. So remains to be seen what will happen, but I would be surprised if the work that we do wouldn't be part of that, if we wouldn't continue to carry that on.
And so as we wrap up here, any last nugget of wisdom?
So, I have to say, working for Paul Allen has been one of the greatest honors and privileges of my career, and it was enormously challenging, and I'm sure will continue to be. And Paul asked a lot of questions, constantly asked questions, very difficult questions. And I think that's something I'm going to carry forward, is to ask lots of questions, because that's what good documentary filmmakers do. So.
Jannat Gargi, thank you very much for being here this morning.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here.